y'all? This is John and Mike back for another episode of the Nothing Finer podcast. As always, we are live on Millions. Just gonna be honest, dude. This shit sucks.
It
Um,
does suck.
this is the first time we've recorded an episode after a loss. Um, so we've never done this before. Um,
It's uncharted territory.
yeah, I think this week we're really just gonna jump right into it.
Because none of us are feeling good or feeling great at all.
No,
Weekend
no,
was not good. It was ruined.
yeah. Bama found a way to make it shitty for all of us, at least all of us that are listening, because I highly doubt anybody that's not a Georgia fans listening to us. Um, and I'll say what sent you in a text last night. This was a failure from the top, and by top I mean Kirby Smart, all the way down. Um,
Yeah.
and I say Kirby Smart because he wasn't necessarily making the play calls, making the personnel decisions, but as a head coach, he has the authority to overrule certain play calls and certain personnel decisions. You know,
Mhm.
I think that there were probably guys that were maybe should have been in instead of a 40% healthy Lad McConkey or a 70% healthy Brock Bowers potentially. Um,
Mhm.
maybe call plays other than a toss sweep on third and a foot. You know,
They
solid
did that twice, by the way.
twice,
Yeah.
twice,
Yeah.
and
Never worked.
ch- challenge fourth down play where everyone on your sideline was saying incomplete. Um, you know,
Yeah, because otherwise, I mean, it was 4th and 4. Turn that over. They don't score at the half. It's a what, 7-3 game or 10-7 game? 10
ten 7
10-7.
game,
Yeah.
10-7 game. And then it was a turnover on down, so there's no telling if Georgia would have been able to move the ball there.
Mhm.
No, I mean it was disappointing on every level. Decisions were made that were terrible decisions
Mhm.
consistently throughout the game. I will say I love the Anthony Evans punt return. That was the best decision that was probably made all night.
Yeah.
Um,
Mhm.
no, I'm shocked after what we've seen over the last two seasons. You know,
Mhm.
something that we probably should have hit on a little more was um, the fact that you were going to have a true freshman linebacker in coverage against the slot receiver for Bama or spying Jalen Milrow.
Mhm.
And when you're essentially dual responsible for both of those on the same play, you cannot be right. It's just not possible.
Right.
Uh, Play calling offensively and defensively not great. Um,
Well, like I'll say, like on defense, realistically, Georgia had two like really piss poor drives. Obviously, that resulted in touchdowns, and then the fumble on the reverse that nobody thought to pick up. Um, Obviously, that wasn't really the defense's fault. I mean, obviously they allowed points there, but it could have. I don't want to say it could have been worse, but it could have been worse. But like two of those drives where they just sliced that defense like it wasn't even there was troubling to say the least.
yeah, and I will say, you know, give credit to Alabama. They came
Yeah.
in with the right game plan. They came in, made the right coaching decisions,
Mhm.
made in-game adjustments that shut down what Georgia was trying to do. So I'm not saying that Georgia lost this game. Alabama did win this game. I'm not going to
Mhm.
try to counter it and say it didn't happen the way it did because it absolutely did happen that way.
Mhm.
But after those first two drives where Georgia allowed nothing for Alabama's offense.
Yeah, it was like 4 yards, right?
Right.
Yeah.
They started, they ran almost every play the rest of the night with 12 personnel.
Hmm.
A tight end that had less than 10 catches all season played most of that game because he could run block.
Yeah.
So CBS, and we'll actually give credit to CBS here in a minute, but CBS saying Alabama's run game or offensive line shoved everybody around all night. Incorrect. ESPN during that 6 hour playoff show saying that Alabama's offensive line pushed Georgia around all night. Incorrect. Because every single one of their runs that went for good yards, a tight end hit that gap first. They were essentially
Yeah.
playing I formation football, but using a tight end inline blocking, coming back around and hitting the hole. So
Hmm.
while Alabama did beat Georgia, their offensive line's still not good. On obvious passing situations, Jalen Milroe still got his ass beat.
I think what Georgia sacked him at least 4 times, right? I don't have the box score pulled up. I'm going to do that in a second. But I mean, they were at times, I mean, they just ate him alive.
Yeah, no, it was like I don't.
Yeah, they had 4 sacks, 8 tackles for loss.
Yeah, so that whole oh Alabama's offensive line has improved. No, no, they did
Mm.
not.
No.
Alabama knew that they couldn't win the line of scrimmage without bringing in extra guys.
Yeah.
Is what happened there. And I hate to call guys out individually. Um, Dalen Everett, not the guy.
No.
Not the
Mm-mm.
guy.
He's been picked on all season, and it was still, evident in this game.
Yes, he has some drastic improving that he needs to do, or when Julian Humphrey is healthy, he will be taking his spot back. I
Hmm.
mean, we saw it. If Kirby's making a secondary change mid-season, it's because the other guy has drastically proven that he is better than you in practice.
Hmm.
Um, and would you like to know the list of guys that have allowed zero touchdowns in coverage this season? It's
I'm gonna
Kamari
guess it's
Lassiter.
just one. Yeah, I was gonna say
Well, no,
him.
Jamari Lassiter, Kamari Lassiter, Javon Bullard, Tyke Smith. Zero
Hmm.
touchdowns allowed between those three guys all season while they were in man-to-man coverage.
Hmm.
Dalen Everett was all but like three of the touchdowns, and the others were when a true safety, not a like split
Star.
time between the two
Yeah.
positions, but a true safety, Malachi Starks, was in
Hmm.
man-to-man coverage. That's it.
Yeah.
That is the list of guys that allowed touchdowns in the secondary this season.
Hmm.
So
I mean, it's impressive for those 3 guys, obviously, but yeah, there's one of those things isn't like the other.
correct, correct. And
Hmm.
anytime you have a safety in man-to-man coverage, it's probably not going to go your way. That's just kind of how football works. Safeties aren't corners because they don't do man coverage well.
Yeah.
But no, it's and the defensive line is definitely not the defensive line of the last couple of years past.
Mhm.
I will say that there were guys that definitely made their presence known. I mean, Zion Logue was terrorizing Jalen Milroe all night, whether it was getting in the passing lane or
Mhm.
getting to him. Warren Brenton,
Jalen
Savannah
Walker.
boy,
Yeah.
tearing it up.
Hmm.
But Nas got pushed around, actually pushed around. Um,
Hmm.
Tyrion Ingram Dawkins, I guess he's still dealing with a lingering injury because he was not near as explosive as far as getting off the ball as he usually is. And
Yeah, he wasn't on the stat sheet at all.
no. And then, Michael had his hands full with the only offensive lineman
Mhm.
that's worth the shit on that entire team all night.
Yeah.
I After this performance, I truly, truly believe that if you are a defensive lineman in the transfer portal this season, you're getting a call from Kirby Smart.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, he has his work cut out for him to fill that in because I mean it's tough to obviously the last few years. having guys like Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis before that,
Devontae
generation.
Wyatt,
Yeah, Devontae, Quay Walker's a linebacker, but like all these guys, these generational talents, like it's going to be a drop off, and obviously we saw that in really the game that mattered most.
well, a few games this season. I mean, Auburn ran for 200, Tech
Yeah.
ran for 200, and then
Mhm.
what did Bama have?
Bama had
114.
192. Oh, I'm sorry, they had 192 receiving. Yeah.
Yeah, they had 114.
Mhm.
I mean, 2.8 yards per attempt, not bad. But
No. Mhm.
um,
But they got those yards
it
when
was
they needed
negative
them though. That
yards or
yeah
like 12. That was Bama's rushing
yeah
game. It was like
mhm.
negative yards or a first down every time. Um,
Yeah. Mhm.
and you know, like I talked about earlier, having a true freshman in C.J. Allen trying to cover Isaiah Bond and play spy at the same time, that's never going to work.
No.
And that's not saying like you
How
cannot
much
make the correct decision in the spot he was put in.
mhm. Would it been ha would it do you think it would have been much better with Pop out there if even
No,
80%?
no.
Yeah.
I think C.J. Allen is probably better in coverage than Pop is, just because he's
Mhm.
faster.
Yeah.
Um, but no, I don't think it would have been any different. I think with the way that Alabama was playing and with hurry up, I think C.J. Allen would have played probably as many, if not more, snaps than Pop, anyways. Um, so like, I'm not saying that if there was the only way that I think a guy playing the position that C.J. Allen was the other night would have been. I think the only person or people that could have done that well, and you're looking at a short list of like Roquan Smith and N'Kobe Dean and Quay Walker. Like you're looking
Yeah.
at a select few guys that have played for the team over the last decade, and it's. I mean, I don't even know if they could have done it significantly better.
Mhm.
Uh, you know, I think the game plan should have been better.
It I don't want to say I don't know. Do you think they psyched themselves out going into it? Obviously, we beat Georgia. I mean, we beat Alabama in the 2021 championship. But it's like, is there
There's not
some?
a lot of guys on the team that were part of that.
Yeah, but I mean, is it a coaching staff thing, like playing scared a little bit? Because like we saw in the Peach Bowl how, I mean, obviously this is a year ago, but like how on Kirby was, snuffing out that fake punt and things like that. And we're gonna talk about, bitching about some of the calls, even though I want to reiterate, we're not Bama, we're not Tennessee, we're not gonna blame missed calls and fucking injuries on the loss or why we lost. But
But it had an effect.
yeah, certain. I mean, the I mean, I'll get into it now. So I mean, we talked about it before, but Kirby not challenging that, that 4th and 4 catch that should have been even looked at. I was surprised the booth didn't look at that.
When Gary calls out that was an incompletion that needs to be
Yeah.
looked at in real time, and the refs are
Mm.
just like, "Ah, it's all right."
And then like later in the game they looked at the fucking area and 50-yard bomb. Like,
Yeah,
what?
yeah.
Yeah.
When Gary is roasting Gene Steratore coming back
Hmm.
from halftime because Gene is sitting there cucking himself for the
Hmm.
referees,
Yeah.
maybe there's a damn problem. Once
That
again,
yeah.
not saying that a few missed calls were a difference in the outcome of this game.
Mm.
Absolutely not. But there was, it definitely had an effect on the way the game played out.
Hmm.
I
I
mean,
just I don't get how he didn't how I mean I don't criticize Kirby very often obviously because he knows way more football than I'll ever know or forgot it more than I'd ever know, but how do you not how do you not challenge that at that point? Like, you lose a timeout in the first half, so what?
right. It's
So
towards the
what?
end of the first half, anyways. Like, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you'll probably end up being, conservative anyway, and not doing anything when you get the ball back anyway. So I don't what was the harm? I got but it didn't, obviously it didn't happen. You come like in the first half too, you have uh Peyton Woodring. Oh, I'm sorry, like that field goal that went off the upright. It was it was a 45-yard field goal at first. Got called off sides, move it back to 50. He hits the upright.
That's good from the initial spot.
Yeah, absolutely,
50 yards,
absolutely.
50 yards would have been his career long.
Yeah,
Like to say that we expect a true freshman to make a 50
yeah.
yard field goal in the biggest moment that he has ever been in his football life,
Mhm.
no,
No, I'm not.
absolutely
Oh,
not.
and yeah, but by no means am I blaming him on that. Like I mean, he's continuing this long lineage of like great kickers that Georgia's had in the Kirby Smart era.
He's missed 4 or 5 field goals all season.
Yeah, he's been money for the most part. I'm not blaming him in the
Right.
least, but just some mental mistakes and shit like that. Yeah, like again, a 45-yard field goal, even that. Like if he misses that, okay, you can live with it. But asking him to do a 50-yard field goal too, is a tough look. Like I'm not putting any blame on him. I'm hoping, X or Twitter, the lunatic fringe of the fan base isn't going after him and any of these other guys. So that a lot of them played their asses off. It's just little things that, what was the difference in this game. And again, we're not blaming injuries or missed calls or anything like that. But while it did have an impact, that's not the reason why we lost. It's not.
No, no,
Other things that could
absolutely.
have been better.
And to point to another egregiously missed call where they called horse collar,
Yes. Oh my
where
God.
he
Yeah.
very obviously had the outside of the shoulder pads on both sides.
hmm
Once again, Gene cucked himself for the refs.
hmm Well, even Kirby, I mean, Kirby, that's one thing that we definitely saw on the telecast was he was politicking hard for that. I mean,
Yeah,
and I'm like, oh, surely, he convinced them. They didn't call back one of those
no,
flags that they pulled. Like I didn't see, oh, actually, there's no penalty for horse collar tackle or anything like that. Yeah,
no. And,
yeah,
as far as, like, I'm going to be honest, there was a lot of pass interference going on all night long
hmm
on both sides.
yeah, yeah, absolutely.
And the one that was called is a bad rule, not a bad call.
hmm
Pass interference where the quarterback underthrows it intentionally to get the pass interference. Change the rule.
hmm
Like that, the referee was doing his job in that instance. So
Yeah,
I saw people all over social media during the game complaining about that call. It is a bad rule, not a bad call.
yeah, hmm
And, you know, to go to the offense a little bit, we already talked about those toss sweeps on like third and a foot that were just
hmm
terrible decisions when
yeah.
the
It,
QB sneak worked
mhm.
more than it didn't all night long.
Before you get into what you're gonna say with that, it was cute when we said like at the beginning of the season, oh, I want to line up an I
Start the
formation or do
season,
start
yeah,
the season, not in game fucking 13.
yeah,
Come the fuck on when you hadn't really done that all year.
yeah.
And
And when you
sure, yeah,
did, it was like, oh, UAB has small linebackers. We're going to
yeah.
be able to shove them around.
Or when you have Amarius Mims out there or
Yeah,
Tate Ratledge out there at full strength, like yeah, okay, maybe I can see it, but come on.
yeah. And, moving on to the offensive line just a little bit, Mims went down.
hmm
You know, he'd been dealing with injuries on and off all season. Hate it for him.
hmm
And then Tate didn't play most of the second half.
Yeah.
So once again, injuries, not the reason Georgia lost. That was decision making, coaching, bad decisions, even on players'
hmm
parts.
Yeah.
But injuries definitely had an effect.
hmm
Um,
And again, reiterating that is the injuries are not the reason why. We're not going to go on social media and say, "Oh, but we missed two offensive linemen. It doesn't count. It
Georgia
invalidates what
recruits
Alabama
offensive
did."
line just as good, if not better, than anybody in the country.
hmm
That shouldn't be a reason.
Yeah. hmm
And they
And
even started driving late in the game with two backup offensive linemen in. So like,
yeah,
what did it have an effect on the overall way Georgia called plays? Yes.
yeah,
Was it the
yeah.
reason they lost? No.
No. And then even like with receivers that are hurt, you talked about at the top with Brock being 70%. He was not that at the end of the game. That man could not
No.
walk at the end of the game.
No.
He was a fucking warrior. Lad being 50% out there. I mean, other
50%
guys,
might be generous.
yeah. Yeah, he went out early. Like he looked like he couldn't walk in the second half. They must have shot him up with some like a couple cortisone shots or something because he was able to at least move around a little bit better. And then obviously he kind of wore off later on. But like you mentioned, I mean, there's enough pass catchers on this team, the wide receiver room and pass catchers that's deep enough to where, again, that shouldn't matter. I mean, I shouldn't say it should. It's not the reason why you lost.
Late in the
It doesn't
game,
impact the math. I
Ty
lost.
Muse got
Hmm.
called in. First drive he's in, he gets a big play. Like,
Yeah. Hmm.
you couldn't have done that when Ladd tried to leave the field and you said, no, get back out there. Like,
Right.
you couldn't have just been like, hey, we need somebody else.
I, that's why I think like some of this was like in the coaches' heads. Like it's that Saban effect. Just looking across there, even though you beat him once, you hadn't beat him in Atlanta. I wonder if that had something to do with it. They're like, no, we need everybody out here because we can't do it without everybody. I don't know. I hope that's not the reason, but you. I don't know. It
You know,
it's definitely
I
frustrating.
definitely think it was in Bobo's head. And
Yeah.
I say that because Mike Bobo had never beaten Nick Saban.
Mm-mm.
Never. He was not on staff when they beat Alabama in 2021. And
Well, then he. Oh, never mind.
when it got to the point that Georgia was in the situation where they needed a yard, they needed a first down. Instead of doing what works, doing what has worked against every defense all season, doing what worked against Alabama earlier in the game, you get cute with a fake double handoff and fumble the ball in your own red zone.
Hmm.
You do a toss sweep on third and a foot where Carson could have dove and got it. Like,
Use your 6'4" quarterback to just
yeah,
fall
you
forward.
they got cute when they didn't need to. And
Hmm.
I do think the Alabama effect was in Bobo's head.
Yeah.
I hope that's something he can get over because he called a single bad game and a handful of bad plays all season.
Yeah. Bobo overall is not the reason why we're not in the playoff. No, I'm not.
No,
Like I saw a lot of people blaming him as well. No, mm-mm. Not going to sit for it or stand for it, or whatever you want to fucking say.
no, and to hit on the running backs a little bit, Kendall Milton was by far the best running back we had on the roster last night. I
Hmm.
and there were times where he got hit low, and that used to be his kryptonite.
Yeah.
He stepped through those, he jumped through those, he dove and got extra yards with those last night. And, something I want to talk about real quick that's not pertinent to last night's game. When Kendall was asked today if he was going to sit out the bowl game, he said, hell no, I would never leave those boys hanging like that. I've been to hell and back with them. I am playing
Hmm.
this next game.
Hell yeah.
That,
That's a culture. That is the
yes,
type of program that Kirby has built, and I
yes.
love it. I love it. I love it. Love it. Love it. Love it.
I, there's, and back to the Mike Bobo thing a little bit. Carson was visibly frustrated with the calls that were being
Yes.
sent to him. There's a clip floating around of I want to say it was after that 3rd and 1 toss sweep. He's leaving the field and he says, if you read his lips, what the fuck was that play?
Jen was showing it to me on TikTok, and she had pointed out that somebody had said it looked like he said, "I like big oily men," which I don't think that's what he said. I think it's probably what you said.
Yeah. Highly doubt he's talking about big oily men during the biggest game he's ever played in his life. Um,
Yeah,
big doubt, big doubt.
I hope not. Maybe
Yeah,
no, I hope not. Nope.
yep. And to be fair, he did have some. Carson himself had some questionable decisions. He
Yeah.
looked very uncomfortable all night.
Hmm. Well, like overall, I mean, he was 21 of 29 for 243. So obviously not the output that you're used to doing. I mean, almost that 250 yard, mark that we had talked about all year. But could he have been better? Absolutely. But again, that some of that's a function of some of the play calling and all that. So
And
yeah.
if Carson comes back, he's obviously eligible for the NFL. Um,
Mhm.
I hope he's got the dog in him that it gets him to come back
Mhm.
to the University of Georgia because honestly, after a game like that, it's possible that it's in his head to transfer. I hope it's not, but it
Yeah.
is possible. If he does come back, I think he needs to have a come to Jesus meeting with the offensive staff and be like, hey, so if we get out there and I think that your play call is stupid, we're doing something else.
Hmm.
He's like, we'll keep personnel, but a tall sweep on 3rd and 1 with a defense as good as Alabama's, we're not doing it.
Yeah. Hmm.
We're just not doing it.
Yeah. I think he does come back. I'm hoping that he comes back for sure because that again that last game is not what you necessarily want to have on tape going into the draft. You were a fringe like top 100 prospect coming into that game. You probably fell out of it.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know, it all. I mean, obviously,
You're
it only.
talking day 3 at this point, probably.
Yeah. And, honestly, if the rumors are true about the collective trying to get together a package to keep him, he's probably going to make more at Georgia next year than he would as a day three
Day 3
pick.
guy. Yeah, no, I agree.
Yeah.
Um, do you have anything else you want to hit on with this game? Because I think we've kind of talked about everything that I had in mind. We talked
Hmm.
about it, all the poor decisions, the bad play calling, all that kind of stuff.
Hmm.
Um, I don't want to
Um.
harp on it. I don't want to harp on it too much.
Yeah. There's okay. There's two other things I wanted to touch on. I had wrote down before we kind of get to like players of the game type stuff, even though we won't talk about that too long. Um. Did you get a chance to see the Jermaine Burton thing at the end, like after the game?
Yeah,
What
trash,
the fuck? Yeah.
trash.
Okay, so Jermaine Burton had two catches all day. Granted, he did have a touchdown, so there's that.
He had a
But
touchdown on Dalen Everett.
yeah, which
That's
is
not a
that
touchdown on the rest of the secondary. That's something to
right?
be hype as fuck about.
Yeah. But yeah, and to go after the game and go all the way to the student section and start, doing the, making a heart gesture, then breaking it and doing like fake tears and just like shouting expletives and stuff. That it that is why nobody likes Jermaine Burton. I don't know how many Alabama fans were like defending that. I have no idea. I don't know what anybody said to him for him to be that salty. He left on his own. It's not like he got kicked off the team, right?
Yeah, as
And
far as I know,
yeah,
it may have been one of those things of, hey, Jermaine, you should probably find somewhere else to play. It may be.
yeah, yeah,
Don't
maybe.
I doubt it.
Hmm.
He was on the team for 2 seasons before he left.
Yeah, and I mean, he had moments this year where he probably was their number one, although Isaiah Bond kind of took over the last two games. But for him to do that, he thinks he's Steve Smith. Remember when he was on the Panthers and he would get in fights and like punch teammates and shit? Jermaine Burton's the type of dude that will punch a woman that's storming the field. He's not going to punch, full
Yeah,
ass grown man.
yeah.
So he's not that guy. He's not.
What I think is funny is that he's so short sighted
Mhm.
that he doesn't think about the consequences of his impulsive actions.
He's going to cost
Because,
himself a fucking draft spot.
oh, he's costing himself millions of dollars.
Hmm.
Because one thing that I talked about when he was at Georgia, I mean, that's well before he had the show, but
Hmm.
like Jermaine Burton was the best route runner on the team, on Georgia's team at the time.
What, like
He,
2020?
2020 and 2021, he was the best route runner on the team.
Okay. Okay.
Healthy, I should say. He was,
Yeah.
he ran the cleanest routes. He
Mhm.
knew the most. He knew how to play off of a defensive back. He came in to college a polished receiver that just needed somewhere
Mhm.
to show his ability. Like he
Dude, yeah.
came into college as that, and he never got any better.
Yeah, he peaked like his freshman and sophomore year. I mean, remember that game he had when JT Daniels that first start against
I was
Mississippi State? He had
at
like
that
200.
Mississippi State game in
Yeah.
2020, 196 yards.
Yeah, insane.
Yeah,
I mean, yeah, we the sky was the limit, but yeah, he's plateaued. He
but
hasn't got any better.
not only has he plateaued, he was forced by his coaching staff into anger management because he smacked a woman storming the field. A few
Hmm.
weeks later, he shoved someone else when LSU stormed the field.
Hmm.
And then he's on tape taunting fans after a game. Like every one of
Mhm.
those things is like, oh, dropped another half
Yeah.
round.
Red
Oh,
flag. Red
dropped
flag.
another
Yeah.
half round. Like you are
Mhm.
costing yourself millions of dollars because you can't help but do something stupid.
Yeah. I hope he thinks it's worth it. Like, yeah, I told that student section. They
Yeah,
they know now. It's totally worth me losing
yeah, they know my
six
three catches
figures.
tonight were difference maker.
Yeah. It's fuck that guy. I don't know what else to say.
I just, if you're gonna be that immature as a
Mhm.
senior in college, where
Yeah.
you're making too much money to
Mhm.
play college football, you transferred from a team that you just won a national title on to the team that you just beat for a national title. And I just, man, immaturity at its finest.
How is he gonna handle being in the NFL? Like, let's say he goes to like Philly or something like that. Like and like he tries any of that, he's gonna get fucking killed.
Oh no, I hope he goes to the Giants,
Yeah. Oh,
where the
they'll eat him
fan base will
alive.
turn the
Yeah.
fan base will turn on you quicker than the other fans, and then you have to go play in Philly.
Mm-hmm.
Like, let's see how that goes. Let's or the Cowboys for the entire nation hates
Yeah.
you,
Mm-hmm.
and then you have to go play in New York and Philly. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, let's see how those poor decisions follow you. Oh man, you got cut after your second year. Your first contract wasn't even up yet. Wow.
Mm-hmm. And what I don't know if we want to save the like where we thought Georgia fell in the playoff, but I want to reiterate that I mean it was a great season for him. Obviously, it didn't turn out the way we wanted to with this game, but in like my heart of hearts, like I feel like this team is a top four team in the country. They had a bad night. Obviously, it happens. It's college football. This is the year where you couldn't have a bad night. Obviously, I mean, Florida State didn't have a bad night all well, relatively. They didn't lose all year and they got left out. So the one year where you really couldn't stand to have a loss, especially in the conference championship, it happened. But like realistically, if you were doing like the real like top four teams in the country, there's a better argument like than the 3% chance that like the ESPN college football playoff indicator or predictor thing had. Like I think after the games, like Georgia had like a 3% chance. I still think they're a top four team in the country, but again, that's not the way that it it could have played out. And I don't realistically, I don't is anybody like really mad at the committee for not putting Georgia in the top four?
There's probably some people that are more biased than we are that are upset about it.
Hmm.
The committee made the right decision.
Yeah, I
Like
don't. Yeah,
we'll
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 like
get into
get
that.
into it.
So as far as like this is the first time we've recorded since that since
They haven't lost.
before Georgia lost.
Yeah.
So I do want to there's a lot of people. I mean, I've only seen it a couple times, but on social media, I've legitimately seen people say that Kirby Smart should be on the hot seat.
That is such fucking bullshit.
I
Absolutely not.
I agree. I agree. But for if any of those people are listening, would you like to know how many times Georgia has not played in the SEC championship game since Kirby got to Athens?
Twice.
Twice.
Hmm.
His first season and a COVID season where Florida had generational talent.
Yeah. So 6 and 8 years, right?
6 in 8 years. Georgia's made
Incredible.
the playoff 3 times.
Hmm.
2017 made it to a title game. 2021 won the title. 2022 won the title. Kirby Smart is still a top two coach in the country. He recruits at a level only rivaled by Texas A&M when they're shelling out hundreds of millions of dollars and Alabama.
Hmm.
And if you want to compare what Kirby has built to what Nick Saban built, Nick Saban never won three in a row. He won back to back titles when college football was the easiest it had been since the 90s.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's not much of a stretch to say.
Hmm.
And this, we've mentioned a few times throughout the season, this was the year of the closest thing we're going to get to parity in college football. Between
Mhm.
NIL and the transfer portal, every team has gotten that. Georgia Tech is going to a bowl game for the first time since 2018. You have the same
Yep.
Florida State team that lost to Jacksonville State 2 years ago go undefeated, win a conference championship, not make the playoff.
Mhm.
Washington's top four players transfer portal. Like I, this was the first year since the playoffs started that one bad day ruins a season.
Mhm.
So if you're questioning Kirby Smart, get your head out of your ass. First off,
I'll yeah, okay. Oh, no, sorry, go ahead.
but and this is something that I talked about at the beginning of the season. You never know how long a run like this is going to last. Made
Right.
history, 29 straight. First team to go undefeated in a regular season 3 years in a row. First team to go 8-0 in the SEC 3 years in a row. Like, we knew it was coming to an end eventually.
Mhm.
And it just so happened that it came to an end the first time since 2014 that you can't have a bad day. So, move on to Florida State. This should be a 56-0 game, if we're being entirely honest. Like, we'll get way into that, and we'll try and talk to somebody from Florida State right before
Mhm.
that game. Um, but Georgia probably got the easiest pick out of the New Year's Six games, if we're being honest. So,
I don't know, man.
okay, Penn
Ole
State.
Miss, yeah, I was gonna say Ole Miss playing Penn State.
Penn
Yeah.
State, maybe.
How how okay, so if it was a 12-team playoff, Penn State would have made it. Penn State. So if you're I mean if everything was different this year, like if we let's say we had, everything remained equal, all the same results happened and we just had a 12-team playoff, Georgia would have a home game against Ole Miss what in like what 2 or 3 weeks, right?
Yeah, it'd be the week before Christmas.
Yeah. So,
We've seen
I
that
mean
this year.
yeah. Yeah, we saw exactly how that would go. Uh
Then they
it's,
would
it's
play Texas in
like
probably
the
the
Sugar
Cotton
Bowl.
Bowl.
Yeah. Oh yeah, yeah.
Probably the
It's
Cotton Bowl.
yeah. It's tough. One other thing I'll say about Kirby and his for anyone saying that he's on the hot seat or should be on the hot seat. We mentioned, the 2 years he didn't go to the playoff that, it was, 2 out of 6 years or whatever. The years that they didn't make the playoff. Well, no, I'm sorry. And they made a New Year's Six bowl every year, right? They made the playoff three times.
Every year since 2017, they have played in a New
Mhm.
Year's Six Bowl
Yeah.
and have lost
Um,
a single one.
yeah, just the Texas the Bevo game.
Yeah,
That's it. They've won 6 straight bowl games.
yeah. For,
So yeah.
and as a program, they have the longest bowl streak in college football.
Yeah, it's like 30
Nope,
years or more.
nope.
No?
Their bowl streak started the year I was born.
Oh my God, 2003.
Not quite, not quite. There is a one at the beginning of my
Okay.
birthday, birth year, I
Only
should say.
only 90s kids would understand, right?
Um, but I this is something that opposing fan base is probably going to talk about quite a bit. The Mark Richt comparison.
Mhm.
Kirby won as many SEC championships in his first 8 years as Mark Richt won in 15.
Yeah. Mhm.
Kirby Smart has played for three national titles. Mark Richt played for a pseudo national title in 2012.
He should, if they had the playoff back then, he probably would have played for at least two, you would think, right?
Yeah, no, I
Maybe
agree.
three.
Maybe
Yeah.
three.
Yeah.
Um, Kirby Smart's won two national championships. First,
Yeah.
first coach to win titles in back-to-back seasons in the playoff era. Like that
Mhm.
cannot go understated.
Yeah.
So, you know, I think we should probably move on at this point because we are
Yeah.
40 minutes in. But
Yeah. We got some other
you
stuff
know,
to hit on.
like
Yeah.
this, while the streak ended, while it probably for the last 24 hours, it felt like the sky's falling.
Mhm.
That's just a few raindrops. Sky's still
Yeah.
up there, buddy. All right. So you want to go ahead and move into the playoff ranking stuff,
Yeah, we can do that.
or did you want to talk about one of the other conference title games? I can't remember what we talked about.
Um, I mean, we can hit on the other conference title games, really. I mean, the only game that was good was the Pac-12 championship, and that was kind of the same result
Yeah,
as the first time. So, I mean, Washington beat Oregon again by a field goal, 34-31. Penix outplayed Bo. Um, I mean,
it was kind of shocking how poorly Bo Nix played. Like he
yeah.
lost himself runner up in the Heisman on his
Hmm.
first drive.
Yeah, he lost his ticket to New York.
He's
I don't
probably
think he's
still
gonna be a
going.
finalist at this point. I guess it depends on
Who?
how lopsided it is, right?
I think it's Daniels, and then him and Penix are going to split second place.
Yeah.
Like it's going to be close to 50-50.
Hmm.
Um, I can tell you the Carson conversation we were having a few weeks ago is absolutely
Yeah,
not the
that's
case anymore.
that was dead after the Tech game.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
But the ACC championship, I know those kind of lead into what we're talking about with the playoff, but anybody watching that game, if you saw Florida State, I mean, it was what 16-6.
Yeah,
But
it was pretty
I
gross.
yeah, obviously Florida State's defense is elite. Like they have a very good defense. I mean, they do.
I mean,
That's the one
that's
side of
the same Louisville team that scored 31 against Kentucky last week.
yeah. Yeah, so they're yeah, it's they have one side of the ball is elite, and obviously with Jordan Travis's leg exploding and him dying on the field, obviously it's tongue in cheek, but that cost them a spot more or less. I mean, the ACC schedule's weak, and everybody talked about how bad the SEC out of conference SEC games and stuff like that were, but. I mean, Florida State, it does matter. No, you don't want to see a TCU Georgia game again where it's 65-7. Like Florida State, I think would get blown out by anybody, and we both think they're probably gonna get blown out by Georgia in the Orange Bowl in a few weeks.
I,
Uh, yeah.
I mean, so Florida State, that game was fun to watch if you like defense last night.
Hmm.
But so we'll just go ahead and jump into the playoff talk with
Yeah.
Florida State getting left out. Florida State got left out, one because of the Jordan Travis injury, yes. But if they had still gone undefeated after losing Jordan Travis, but they beat the hell out of quality competition,
Hmm.
they would be in the playoff right now.
Yeah.
It would be Bama 5, Georgia 6.
I saw some people talking about the comparison, like, oh, the common opponent that Florida State and Alabama had is LSU, and obviously Florida State, beat the hell out of LSU. It was for Bama, it was a lot closer. But if you look at like who has the best win, obviously it's Bama, right? They've beat a team
Yes.
that's back-to-back national champions, 29 in a row. All the stuff that we've kept talking about all season. Bama has the best, the best, the best win of anybody this year.
Yeah.
So I don't, yeah, the people that are upset about Florida State not being in, I it's the right decision. Obviously, it sucks that they're undefeated and they missed the playoff, but realistically, I don't know how you can make a good in faith argument why Florida State should be there as presently constructed versus Alabama and Texas. I don't get it.
And Florida State, even if you throw in the ACC championship game, if you throw in Louisville's record,
Mhm.
they are at, like, their opponent's winning percentage is at or below 500.
Mhm.
Like, that's not something that can be overlooked.
No, not
And
at
the
all.
and the Jordan Travis injury, terrible.
Yeah,
And the way he feels and how he put that statement out earlier, where he said, "I wish I broke my leg earlier in the year." I hate that he feels that way.
yeah. And I don't know if you saw it in the explanation when they talked to the NC State athletic director. That's the head of the committee. I mean, he basically had kind of pinned the reason why they put Alabama over Florida State. They kind of pinned it on that injury. He said it kind of like point blank. And that, while that's true, he said the quiet part out loud. That sucks. Like how bad does not Jordan Davis, Jordan Travis
Travis.
feel? Like yeah, he obviously feels bad, and it it sucks. It sucks for him. I don't think anybody's like, yeah, boo hoo. Like, no, like it's legit. That sucks. That's awful that he feels that way, and they kind of they said the quiet part out loud and really put it on him getting hurt because he was borderline before he got hurt. I mean, they were talking about him being in the Heisman conversation. It was him and Jaden Daniels for a while. So
Yeah.
it sucks. It sucks for them, but ultimately they probably got the right four,
And
after the
so
Saturday.
I think Florida State lost their shot at a playoff. Hindsight's 2020, and we're kind of reactionary in this. I think they lost their shot at the playoff with looking terrible against Florida.
Mhm. That was the start of it for sure.
Like that was that was the sign of like terminal cracks in the foundation. When Tate
Yeah,
Rodemaker goes below 50% completion against Florida's defense,
and
that
gets
was like
concussed in that game too, though.
he was,
Yeah,
but he still like before he got the concussion late in the game. It's not like he was doing well.
right, right.
So that was kind of like, oh, there's real cracks here. And then the ACC championship game. Granted, it was a third string guy, but if he would have completed more than 8 passes last night, um, maybe.
Yeah,
Like if their offense would have looked as good with Glenn playing quarterback as it did with them playing Wildcat with a wide receiver playing quarterback, they're in over Bama.
yeah,
If Tate Rodemaker didn't get a concussion and they won this game 35-6 or 35-10, they're in the playoff.
yeah,
But the committee made the right choice because I think this is the first time that they have actually held up to the bylaws as far as the committee picking the teams.
yeah.
Because this was a combination of the four best teams, and you're like, all right, so I think this is one of the four best teams. How do you back it up? Well, they've done A, B, C, and D this season. Here's their strength of schedule. Here's their strength of record. Here's where their numbers are offensively, defensively. Oh, by the way, they're an undefeated Power Five champion. Like
Mhm.
and Boo Corrigan actually talked about it. He said they went around the room and said, "Who's your number one team and why? Who's your number two team? Why?" And he said that they had them, each person not only ranked a team where they thought they should be, but then they had to back it up. So that was it. This was the first time that the committee has done what they should have been doing for the last decade.
Yeah. Do you think that this would kind of be the catalyst for Florida State really leaving? Obviously, there were just rumblings before the season, even during the season, about Florida State wanting to leave the ACC. Do you think that speeds up the process, knowing that they went undefeated in that conference and still couldn't get in? Like, do you think that I don't know where they would go necessarily, whether it's the Big Ten or SEC, but do you think that speeds up the process of them getting out of that conference? Because obviously they did everything they could, in their power to get to the playoff, and they couldn't do it.
I think if they can find someone to financially back them, they're gone. Because that's what it's going to take. It's something like
Yeah.
$150 million buyout to get out of the
Hmm.
ACC before 2036, which is
Yeah.
absolutely ridiculous.
Hmm.
But, I mean, Florida State made the playoff in the first year. Should I, without an injury or with either of the backup quarterbacks looking competent, they make the playoff this year.
Yeah.
And I think I think they've got to leave.
They have to. They have
And
to.
I think if they leave, you're talking about Clemson, North Carolina, maybe Miami. Maybe I don't feel real
I
strong
don't
about
know if
that one.
I don't think Miami has the financial backing. Obviously, they have a couple of a couple of boosters, but I don't think they don't have the fan base or the money to do that, do they?
So, probably not. I mean, they have Miami graduates have the money. It's just how much do they care?
Yeah. I mean, obviously they don't go to the fucking games.
Yeah.
Well,
So,
granted, you don't want to go out to that stadium anyway, from my understanding. So yeah.
um, so I'm assuming it would probably be an even number of teams that left, and we're already saying Florida State, Clemson, and UNC are the three that won out the most.
Hmm.
Who is the fourth team? Because I'm thinking it's either Louisville or Virginia Tech.
Hmm.
Or does Notre Dame join a conference with the ACC dropouts?
Hmm. I wonder if, or like another one that I don't know if it been brought up at all, but like what if, because obviously Notre Dame, it comes up every offseason about them, when are they going to join a conference and all that. I wonder if to get Notre Dame to join the ACC, like as presently constructed, what if they, you know, all the money that gets brought in with them and all that, with all the extra eyes and stuff. I wonder if they redo the contract and make it more viable for everybody else to stay there. I don't know. I have no idea. I don't have no idea how that's going to play out.
So I think what they forced SMU into, the contract they forced SMU into,
Oh, not giving them any money for like 3 years or whatever.
oh, it's until 2030.
Shit, I didn't realize it was that bad.
Yeah. So I think that shows everyone around the country that pays attention that the ACC does not care
Yeah,
about how it affects its member schools, how anything works. I really think that the SMU contract, I mean, they're even screwing Cal and Stan. And to be fair, Cal and Stanford aren't really good in any sport right now, so it's not,
no, not the
kind
sports
of
that matter to your viewership. But
not revenue producing sports. Let's say that.
yeah, Olympic
Um,
sports, sure. Yeah,
so I think they showed that they don't care, which I think is just another nail in the coffin for a a significant exodus of the teams that people actually watch in revenue producing sports leaving the ACC.
yeah. I think that's probably more likely as well, for sure.
So for these New Year's Six games, so we've already talked about it a little bit. We've hit on it here and there. Um, what is the New Year's Six game that you think will be the best to watch? Not from a Georgia perspective, but from a fan of the sport.
Besides, I mean, besides Georgia and Florida State playing in the Orange Bowl, I think actually that's going to be a really good matchup. I think it'll be interesting to see, depending on how all that goes out. But um, from like a casual perspective, well, two different things. I mean, Michigan Bama is going to get the casuals for sure because obviously you have like two of the biggest brands in the sport. But hmm, hmm, hmm. As far as the New Year's Six, Ohio State and Mizzou, I think
That
is going to be good.
that's that's kind of where I'm leaning. I think that'll be a really fun game to watch because Mizzou has moved the ball against defenses just as good, if not better, than Ohio State's, and Ohio State's offense has struggled. So I think it's good on good and kind of bad or less than normal against less than normal, like as far as uh, performance goes. And then I'm really interested in this Ole Miss Penn State game
Yeah.
because of how well Ole Miss is or how well Penn State's defense performed against the Big Ten's best teams. So that to me is it's kind of the is Penn State's defense legit or Big Ten offense is just that bad? Like that is what that bowl game is going to tell us.
It could be huge for Lane as well, getting a New Year's Six win. Not that it mattered for like someone like Dan Mullen that got fired after winning a couple of them, but I mean, it might arguably might be the biggest, win that Ole Miss has had. I mean, postseason wise,
Since
ever. I mean,
their
besides them,
title in the 50s.
yeah, since they're segregated title. But yeah, yeah. I mean, there's a lot of good bowl matchups. Obviously, we're gonna get way into them more, but like just some of the SEC related ones. Obviously, we talked about Michigan, Bama, Georgia, Florida State, Ole Miss, Penn State. Future Big Ten, I'm sorry, future SEC school, Arizona and Oklahoma is going to be good too. Alamo Bowl
Oh,
is always good.
oh,
Alamo Bowl is
oh.
always, you can't miss it. It's always good.
I mean, last year Washington and Texas played,
Yeah,
and now they're playing in a semifinal game. I think that's going to be a phenomenal game because Washington is best at passing the ball, and Texas, their
yeah.
secondary is less than, less. Uh,
Battle tested, you want, maybe? I don't know.
do what?
Like less battle tested than,
Yes, but they're also not
I
near
don't
as
know.
good as every other part of their defense.
Yeah, yeah,
Like
that's true.
their pass defense relies on their front seven's ability to pressure the quarterback into bad throws,
Yeah. Hmm.
which has worked against everyone, but they really haven't played a team with an offensive line as good as Washington's. Um,
Yeah.
so I think that's going to be a very interesting game.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, no, I think this bowl season has some of the best matchups that we've had in quite some time. I think it's going to have the most competitive semifinal games that we've
Hmm.
had in quite some time. Um, I think if you're going to send out the 14 playoff, not only do the semifinal games, not only are they going to be great, but the rest of the New Year's Six games are going to be great games.
Yeah.
So, I think if you're going to end it, this is the way to end it. I still think a 6 or 8 team playoff is better than 12, but we
Yeah.
already had that argument this offseason.
Did you see the JJ Watt uh tweet or thing he put out? He's like an emergency 16 playoff where uh Michigan and I think it's Michigan and
Michigan and
Washington get a
Washington.
bye,
Yeah.
and then yeah, Georgia, Bama, Texas, Florida State play in some randomized situation. That would be dope.
I, you know,
But
I think that if it was a fluid situation and wasn't contractually obligated
yeah.
to be the
Mhm.
way it is, like if the powers that be could have just gotten in a room and said, hey, these 6 teams not only deserve it, but they've earned it. Give
Yeah.
everybody a shot.
Yeah. I mean, realistically, yeah. I mean, that makes the most sense. If money wasn't an object, that would be the way to go. Because they, with a 12 team, does anybody really think Penn State has a shot, or Ole Miss, or
Liberty.
Yeah, Liberty,
Yeah.
even Oregon after losing to Washington twice? Like realistically, every year, like it's probably going to be 6 teams at max that have like a legitimate shot, and usually it's less than that.
Yeah, it is normally less than that, but I think this year was the best argument for the playoff expansion. I know last year, teams got left out that possibly shouldn't
Hmm.
have been left out. And, especially, what is it, 2014, where there were like three Big 12 schools that
Yeah.
realistically had an argument to be in the playoff. And,
Yeah, it was like
you know,
TCU and Baylor.
Baylor. And,
Yeah.
I mean, TCU, Baylor, and Oklahoma State that
Yeah.
year. They were
Mm-hmm.
all I think they were all one loss teams. They had all beaten each other, but one of them had a conference title. Like it was,
Hmm.
years like that, and especially this year, are the reason that the playoff has expanded. But then this year, you do have 6 legit teams that can compete for a national title. But not only that, you've got college football. I've already hit on it a few times in this episode. The top to the middle is getting condensed.
Hmm.
I mean, Mizzou and Georgia had a game that got taken into the fourth quarter. Georgia Tech is getting better. So, like,
Hmm.
teams in the middle of the pack between NIL and state laws that are allowing NIL for high school players as long as they stay in state, and transfer portal of a guy that was like third string at a top tier program going to some middle of the road school and making them a lot better. Like the sport between the middle and the top is getting significantly closer together. I think the bottom is still kind of as far away from the top as they have been, but the middle of the sport is getting closer to the top. And, I think that's a phenomenal argument for this playoff expansion. And I'm a fan of expanding it, maybe just not to 12.
Yeah, same.
Um,
Uh,
so, what were you about to say?
no, I was just gonna say, like, again, I know we're gonna have plenty of time to talk about it, not getting in depth on it, but like probably like the grossest game that we would even have some kind of interest in is Iowa and Tennessee.
And that's a game that I could get free tickets to, and I have somewhere to stay like 20 minutes away. I was hoping and praying LSU was going to get the Citrus Bowl
Yeah,
because I'll go watch them beat the shit out of somebody.
right. Yeah, yeah.
Like Iowa could score on LSU's defense.
Hmm.
So I'll go watch a 56-21 LSU win in Orlando. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, exactly.
But to watch a 17-13 gross game.
If that
Yeah.
Iowa got shut out by Michigan. Did you one other thing? Did you see the Iowa? There's a bar in Iowa City or just Iowa in general that was like giving out free beer until Iowa scored in that game. They're
Yeah.
done. They got shut
Yeah.
out. It was
They
26 nothing.
to quote Joe Exotic, I'm never going to financially recover from this.
Hmm. Why would they do that? Why? They knew what they were doing. I mean, obviously they got a lot of press out of that, but come on
I
now.
think they were hoping people order food and shots and like,
Yeah,
oh, the free beer's only Milwaukee's best.
yeah. Straight from 40s. Yeah.
Um, so we did skip over players of the game. I don't. The only players of the game I want to talk about are the I can't even remember what we're calling it, but the hardest workers of the game.
Hungry Dogs.
Hungriest dogs. So the hungriest dogs of the SEC championship game, it's Ladd and Brock. They both got
Yeah.
literally helped off of the field multiple times last night. Came back into the game and made big plays late in an attempt to get Georgia to tie the game.
Hmm.
I you can't say enough about what those two have been willing to do for this team in their time here. And if Auburn's God wants to shed a little light into Athens, and they're both pissed off they lost to Bama and want to come back so they can play them in September of next year,
Hmm.
worse things have happened.
Yeah. Definitely worse things have happened. Who knows? They might both come back. Who knows?
It's possible. It is
Yeah,
possible. I
they
mean,
can.
Brock is a first round guy, so that'll be tough. And then
Mm.
Lad, I think I think if he'd been healthy this season, he'd be looked at as a late day one, early day two guy.
Yeah.
But you know,
Did he do the senior day stuff? Do you remember?
Lad, I don't
Yeah.
remember. I don't.
'Cause I
I
know
know he's
Brock
already
didn't do it.
graduated.
Okay. Sweet.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
Hmm.
All
Oh,
right.
we got to do Calling the
So,
Dogs too, right?
oh yes, we have a. I think it's like 6 minutes.
Oh
Yeah,
shit.
I'm not even joking. So for this week's Calling the Dogs, and we're going to keep it open all through bowl season. So if you have a bowl that you have a real hot take on, just want to get something off your chest, call us 678-465-8020. Your voicemail will be on the show. But here is this week's Calling the Dogs.
This fucking sucks. Fucking sucks. Hey y'all, this is the infamous Dr. Frog here, currently at the Copper Rocket, enjoying the Orlando Alumni Society's, watch party here. Holy hell, y'all, I hope this is just a shitty halftime rant and I don't have to do the same damn thing at the end of the game here, but what the shit. Of course, the first fucking game that we let them score on us, or we score first, and then it's just an absolute shit show. I swear to God, Mike Bobo's pulling all of his best shit from the early 2010s out. I'm hearing a goddamn at Mike Bobo about every other play now. good Lord, they need to pull their fucking heads out of their ass and get it to fucking together. Hopefully we'll figure it the fuck out in this third quarter, but I'm not exactly positive. Too many years of Georgia fandom has taught me better. So we'll see. Go Dogs. Dogs till I die, even when they shit the bed. Bye. Hey y'all, this is the infamous Dr. Frog here. As much as I hoped that we would figure it out in the second half, unfortunately, at least evidenced by that first drive there and the start everything, it kind of kept the tone going for what we were to expect tonight, unfortunately. I mean, if we could stop calling dumb plays to run it up the gut when they clearly had figured it out, I don't know, the third time we did it, that would be nice. Mike Bobo, I've tried to give you the benefit of the doubt, but tonight just proves me and proves the rest of us what we already should have known, that you had no damn business coming back here. Please, just get the fuck out of Athens, alright? You're done. Y'all take it easy. Hey y'all, it's the infamous Dr. Frog here. One last final thing now that I've kind of stewed on the ending of the game there. In the grand scheme of things, 12-1 ain't bad. I ain't gonna be whining like the Nebraska fan base that went 9-3 for so many years and fired their head coach to then, now end up in mediocrity. Look, we should be happy for what we have. But we could also be frustrated when things just aren't clicking. In the grand scheme of things, I don't think this year was really a year. I think we had a lot of younger players that just kind of needed some time, and we had a lot of injuries that we dealt with. And while as much as we were hoping that we could push through that, just finally bit us in the end. A 3-point loss to a surging Alabama team that's probably going to now sneak into the playoffs and beat all the other teams isn't the end of the world. And to be honest with you, I'm going to really enjoy all those casuals that were complaining about how dominant Georgia is now having to watch Alabama sneak in and beat their asses too. So, at least we can enjoy that, right? So, anyways, hope y'all have a great holiday season. We'll see what happens and what, New Year's Six Bowl we end up in. Hopefully it'll at least be a fun game and not end up with playing some super team like Liberty. But even if that happens, at least there's a good chance that we can at least go home and relax after the third quarter. So, y'all have a great year. Enjoy your time with your family and everything. Go Dogs.
Well, boys, looks like the podcast has hit a new milestone. This is the first episode of the Dustin Finder podcast recorded after a loss. And let's be honest, this one stings a little bit. Stings probably more than a little bit. It stung in 2021 too when we lost this game. But at least in 2021 we knew we were going to get a second chance at it. It doesn't look like we will this year. And these things happen and these things will resolve themselves next season when 12 teams will make the playoffs. And then we'll probably be actually having pretty much the same conversations about what teams get in. But you know what? It is what it is, man. The easy scapegoat here is to just pin everything on Mike Bobo and say Mike Bobo lost the game. I told you Mike Bobo was no good from the beginning. Now we finally lost the game, which means it's all Mike Bobo's fault. Now it's right. That's a lazy response to this game. Mike Bobo was not the one who let Jalen Milroe scramble around and get several first downs to end that game so they could run down the clock. And in fact, Mike Bobo, I'm not saying he called the game perfectly. I had plenty of problems with it too. But he did get us in a position to win that game as the defense stepped up, and the defense didn't step up there at the, it happens. Mike Bobo couldn't help that Carson looked like a deer in the headlights out there for a lot of that game. That happens, but first year starting quarterbacks in that first championship game. Sometimes that happens. You could say, well, Stetson figured it out, and his, not really actually. Look at the SEC championship game. I was thinking national when I said that. But he had already played on a championship game before that. So, trying to have a little gratitude here, because I think a little gratitude is deserved, It's been 2 years since we've had to feel like this. So, heck of a run. Not many teams can say that. And certainly not many Georgia teams have been able to say that. We're used to feeling this way far more often. So just want to encourage everybody to look back, look at the run we had. Don't say everything's over, fire Kirby Smart because we didn't three-peat. That's a ridiculous standard to try to hold them to. You know, we got plenty of chances to get back in it next year. You know, hopefully the committee gives us a nice bowl game. You know, somebody like Oregon or Ohio State or Oklahoma, who we were supposed to play, and not Louisville or SMU or somebody like that, or Liberty, God forbid. So we
Oh, so the last voicemail apparently got cut off towards the end. But the last voicemail was Caleb, so it is fitting that in this week's Caleb's Corner, it's a very not fun fact. Um, the last three times Georgia has lost to Alabama, they put up exactly 24 points. For the people that are going to say it's Mike Bobo's fault, two of those three were under Todd Monken, and not to mention Georgia put up better offensive stats this year than they did last year under Todd Monken. So once again, it is not a Bobo problem. He had one bad game and a handful of bad calls. I guess we'll talk about our bets now, even though I'm saying that like we both did poorly.
I think we have the same record.
We do. We do.
Yeah.
So I took Oregon to cover 9.5. Obviously, that not a good call. It wasn't.
No.
Texas minus 15. That was just easy money. Michigan minus 21.5. They won by 23, so barely covered.
No, Michigan won by 26.
Oh, 26. Sorry, I
Yeah.
forgot about their fifth field goal of the game. Um,
Yeah.
Florida State minus 2.5. They obviously won by 10, even though it was a very ugly 10. Took Georgia to cover. We know how that went. Kendall Milton at least one touchdown. Could have doubled that and still made money on it, so that was a good one. And then Tulane SMU over 47. Thought that was a for sure hit with the amount of points both those teams given up late in the season, but it didn't. So a little disappointed in that. But record this week 4-3, and still have a winning record on the season.
Mhm. So me, I wasn't too radically different from you. I took Texas to cover the 15. Obviously, they did that. Took Michigan to cover the 21.5. They did that. Took Louisville to cover the plus 2.5. Lost by 10. The Iowa .5 over didn't fucking hit.
Didn't hit in the whole game.
Didn't hit the whole game. We talked about that already. And they took it off the board because so many people took the over. Like I didn't see it anywhere. I told my
That's
brother to put it in for
hilarious.
me up there. He couldn't find it. So instead, what I ended up hitting on was the one that you had talked about that I think I had mentioned before about wanting to get in on the Kendall Milton having at least one touchdown plus 100. Hit that. But obviously I did not do much better because I also picked Georgia to cover that 5.5. And yeah, that didn't happen. So I think of those two bets, I think I won like $1. So I just let my brother keep it. But uh, a little tip for doing my gambling up there. But championship week, I also went 4-3. So uh, again, still over 500. So that's all that matters.
So I do want to say nothing finer moment of the week is Bo Nix after his last college football game. I think he's towards the top of most games started, if not has the sole record for most games started as a college player. Lost in a heartbreaker. Just Oregon wasn't clicking on all cylinders. Lost to Washington. Sat on the sideline until Kalen DeBoer got interviewed. Michael Penix got interviewed. Dylan Johnson got interviewed. So he could go over and give Michael Penix a hug. And that's the kind of stuff we want to see. They're obviously rivals. Both of them have been in this game for a long time. But for him to have just suffered one of the hardest losses in his career and still have the wherewithal and lack of impulsiveness to go show a fellow competitor that sort of love and admiration is something that, if we're being honest, Bo Nix in his first season, that's not something he would have done. So
Right.
love to
Hmm.
see the growth of him as a person because just we've talked about it since last season. Just don't be a dick. Be a good
Yeah.
person. It's not
Yep.
difficult.
Hmm.
Um, but as always, guys, follow us on our social medias at nothing.finerpod on Instagram, at finerpod on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. Just search us there. Um, for our merch. So it is still on millions.co. If you search us on there, go ahead and give us a follow while you're there. You have to create an account, but it's not too difficult. But for our merch, we're making an announcement. As of the Monday of the national championship game, we are taking our reigning, defending shirts, hoodies, kids' shirts, taking them all off. Because that will be the day that Georgia is no longer the reigning, defending national champion. And we're not going to falsely advertise like that. We're not going to keep selling championship merch long after they are no longer champions. So,
Yeah.
as of that Monday, we are going to take that down. So, if you want to get one of those, go ahead and get it. Ask for it for Christmas. You know, get yourself
We
something for Christmas.
we'll still have the third and back shirt out there. Shout out to our buyer out there in Ontario picking that up, man.
Yes.
Thank you, sir.
Yes. Shout out Canada. Love you guys. Your
Yeah,
bacon
man.
can use some work, but other than that, you're pretty cool.
And your gravy and French fries are interesting. Interesting choice.
I've still never
Poutine.
had poutine.
It. I'm not a fan.
Oh, okay. I mean, you're pretty much from Canada, so that's saying something.
Basically, I'm north
Yeah.
of it.
I was about to say you're north. If you go to the north, you hit Canada. If you go to the south, you hit Canada. If you go east, you hit Canada from where you
Hmm.
grew up. So it's,
Yeah, just surrounded by Canada all
yeah,
around.
wild. Wild.
Yeah,
Um,
geography crazy, man. I swear.
and like we keep saying, rate and review the show, 5 stars, send us a screenshot. We will send you a sticker. Do it on your boyfriend, girlfriend, son, daughter, nephew, cousin. Do it on their phones. Help us out. Um,
Mhm.
but even after a loss, there's nothing finer in the land.
Been a drunk, obnoxious Georgia fan.